Dear learners, welcome back to another session of Research Methodology for Tourism and Hospitality Management. We have almost progressed halfway and we are now entering into the practical aspects of research methodology. We have seen review of literature process in detail in the last week. This week, we will be discussing upon the process of sampling, the process of data collection, and the real research in detail. Now onwards, we are entering into another phase of our research journey. I welcome you all once again. Let us see the topics that we are going to discuss in this week. So, in this week, we will be studying population, sampling process, primary data collection, that is for qualitative and quantitative studies, and we will try to cover some methods used in data collection process. So, in this module, what we are going to discuss today is population and sampling in qualitative research. Learners, let me just brief you about qualitative research once again. In qualitative research, the researcher spends time with a research area and try to identify patterns and themes that is normally observed or reported from the behavioral pattern of the people or the respondents. And we have seen different type of qualitative researchers such as phenomenology, case study, grounded theory, ethnography, symbolic interaction, discourse analysis, and so on. So, these all methods need data. Data is the key for all researchers. So, how to finalize sampling and how to proceed with that? The sampling procedure is more or less same for quantitative and qualitative researchers. If you know the logic behind sampling, then it would be easy for you to address your research question and go ahead with the data collection process. So, primary data is one of the most useful and impactful aspect of any research. So, primary data means the data collected first time from the field. Normally, the researcher, he or she himself or herself, visit the area, interact with the respondents and collect the data. Or the researcher can use online tools in the form of questionnaires shared through social media or any other media of communication. And the third part is Qualtrics or Amazon mTurk. These companies also facilitate primary data collection. So, for us, we are considering the students who are pursuing courses at a graduate, postgraduate or PhD level. So, we might be doing the data collection from the field directly. So, here the researcher has to pay attention to number one, what kind of data is required, and number two, how to get this data, where the respondents are located, and based upon this, you devise a strategy for data collection. So, for qualitative data, we normally use semi-structured interviews or structured interviews or informal interviews. Two other forms, that is, one is focus group discussions or content analysis and observation process. So, with this we can collect the required inputs. For quantitative studies, we use surveys, we can also use content analysis and converting the qualitative data into quantitative, even if you use observation process. Could you see some emojis on your screen? Are these emojis smiling at you? I visualized the definition of population while creating this image. So this image represents population. That means there is a boundary. Within the boundary, these subjects are situated. So Saunders, one of the very prominent authors in research methodology, defines population as a set of cases from where we have to identify a sample that indicates population. When we talk about population, the immediate information is it's related to the population of a country. Census is one of the process which we use to estimate the population of a place. So the boundary means here within that locality, within a particular area, how many people are there. So that is here mentioned as the population. Second, there is another term added here, sample. See now, in a locality there are millions of people living. So for a researcher is concerned, you cannot meet all these people. There are a lot of limitations. We need a sample out of it. I quote this example of sugar or salt. Do we need to go each and every corner of a bag to check whether that is sugar or salt? No, we need a handful, a small teaspoon, where you can understand whether it is sugar, the taste, or salt. So population is like this, where you have people in millions, you have to identify a subset, and that is process is from a sampling frame. Take the boundary line here, that green boundary line, take it as sampling frame. That is a list that we have, and the chosen samples, that subset is called sample. I quoted Patton when we studied qualitative research. According to Patton, there are certain issues which a researcher faces when you go for data collection. This table divides the total information into three different areas. One is design issue, which you find here, and the breadth and depth of your research. So for example, focus. What is the focus of your research? Is it narrow or broad inquiry? Narrow means, am I studying the biography of a person? Or here I have taken the example of a classroom. If I am going to study a wide geographical area, that is treated as broad inquiry here. So first you have to identify the focus. Like in a camera, we adjust the lens, that is for zooming. So here you have to fix that boundary. Second one is tight or open. Here the interaction is taking place in one place or multiple places. If you have to interact people, collect the information at multiple places, the breadth is wide and the same way it is open. Where there is one person, you have more strictness on your research and it can be called as tight. The third aspect is method. Whether one method will work for your research or you have to use multiple methods. See, interview is one of the method, or observation another method. In some studies, people use both interview and observation. So if a single method is used in a study, the depthness is more, and I don't say like interview and observation the depthness come down, but it gives you different perspectives. The next aspect is sample. Sample is like case study, which is an in-depth study. One specific issue is addressed. But in some cases, more details are required. It is a kind of macro study. So you will collect data from different people and diverse perspectives we can get. The next issue is the openness of the inquiry. Here it comes what emerges from the data. And in the case of breadth, we can find questions, procedures, sample size and design, fixing of all this. So in broad, as a researcher, I am clear with what I am supposed to do in terms of the depth or breadth in this identified 5 different parameters. Your sampling process will be easier so that you can carry on with your research process easily. Now, in quantitative research, you need the maximum sample size. That means 1000, 700, 500, a number of samples. That sample size, if it is high, the possibility of getting precise information or generalization of the result, it is high. In terms of qualitative research, there are different terms we use here. I start with the comprehensive sampling. Comprehensive sampling here means you study the case which you are observing, that is almost every case. Whereas intensity sampling refers to rich cases where the individual or respondent who can give you rich insight. Another case is deviant cases. Deviant cases means extremement, that is people with very different perspectives. Maybe one individual who favors the development project, there would be another individual who opposes the project citing number of reasons. Like these two extremes we can find in our society too. Then maximum variation, the cases that you use is heterogeneous in nature, not homogeneous. The next sampling strategy is homogeneous, where people who's having like common traits, or what you are studying is to identify some similarity, homogeneous sampling will be beneficial. Then typical case sampling, that means one particular case which can illuminate the whole population. Then comes stratified purposeful sampling. We identify the strata and then we proceed with the study. Critical case sampling, this is a very interesting area where you take a particular case which is very critical in nature or which has some kind of examples to quote with. We will discuss it in further case. And the last point here is snowball sampling, the group of people who can recommend you in the next phase whom to be contacted for data collection. Learners, we identify a number of sampling strategy for data collection in qualitative. You know, in quantitative there are a number of regulations or strict guidelines that we have to follow. But in qualitative data collection, it is subject to your research question. Let us see the example once again. I have talked to you about homogeneous sampling, and I also talked to you about heterogeneous sampling strategy. Say homogeneous means a particular community living with a common culture where you can identify similarities. You cannot identify much heterogeneous information there. But if you want information which are differences, where you want to prove the differences, you have to take deviant cases, maximum deviant case. Now we also saw critical case analysis. So any such example which you can quote, and that one case which can elaborate the cases, so that we call critical case analysis. So in this way you may find qualitative researches are more interesting, because the way you collect the sample, that matters ultimately in your research finding. These 4 methods which you can see in your screen is one of the common used terms in qualitative research. One is criterion sampling. Criterion sampling is selected on the basis of the focus of the study, what the study is focusing upon. And number 2, theory. If the study is based upon theory, focusing upon theory, theoretical construct, then choose the sample according to that. Purposeful random sampling, that means most of the studies in qualitative research we take purposefully. because purposeful sampling help you to reach out to such respondents who can give you rich information. Comparable case selection. Here we can identify individuals or groups who has same characteristics, some kind of common characteristics which we can find from individuals or groups. So while you pursue your qualitative research and you are in the verge of collecting the data, the sampling strategy I recommended here you can adopt if it suits to your requirement. So we have seen a number of strategies. One common term that we use is purposeful sampling. Purposeful sampling, you can write that with a specific purpose you are going to collect the data. And second case comes deviant sampling, whether you want to go with extreme cases or critical cases. So let us proceed into the next phase of sampling. Qualitative researchers give 8 categories of sampling. One is single significant case, and the second aspect is group characteristics. From the term itself you can understand these two represent two different formats. One is a single example can work, whereas in the second category there is group characteristics that we study, and the third is conceptual or theoretical. In next phase you may conduct sampling multiple times, and if you are following a practice sequential, means stage by stage based upon the emerging idea, that is called sequential and emergence driven sampling. And analytical focused sampling, that is the seventh one, or the final one is mixed, stratified and combination sampling. So how practically useful these are? Imagine you want to conduct a qualitative study and the information that you are looking for is from a single individual, or you want to collect it from a group. It is up to the research question that we have already seen. So one level of data collection from that individual will work, or you have to do another phase, second level of data collection, that we call multiple cases or multiple times. So it is very important to finalize what kind of sampling strategy that you use, how you are going to write the selection of samples in your methodology portion in either dissertation or research paper. Pattern recommended 4 different strategies under purposeful sampling. One is you have to finalize the inquiry, what topic that you are studying, and second is focus on the questions. Once you have a topic, then design the questions very clearly. Then comes decide what data is required, and finally select the relevant cases. As a researcher, I find difficulty when we choose respondents. So because many times I have to defend whether the respondent give me the right information, and the information given by the respondent, if I generalize that, how valid that is. So if you are a researcher, a full-time researcher, you may also have similar experiences. So having a correct approach, a well-defined strategy for sampling will help you to complete your work satisfactorily. Here I have used theoretical sampling as one of the major aspects of the study. I have mentioned theoretical sampling in another slide. Theoretical sampling is found common in grounded studies. Grounded theorists who conduct research, they use the term theoretical sampling. What does this mean? You collect the data, you analyze it simultaneously, and you come to know that after certain stage the information that you get is redundant. That means no new information is coming. So theoretical sampling, it is not a kind of division of sampling. It is an understanding that researcher is having. That what is the understanding here? After certain stage, I am not going to get any new information. Whatever I have, that is enough for time being, that particular research. So this is what is referred as theoretical sampling, and this term is widely utilized in grounded theories and qualitative researches as well. So dear learners, let me conclude what we have discussed from the beginning. Do you remember the population? We have discussed about the sampling process with the population. Population is a term that we use in every research. Population that include the respondents, the people who are living in an area and who are supposed to be your respondents. Area is defined according to your research. The scope of your research tells the area that you are covering. And then what is sample? Whomever you find is eligible to be included in data collection process, or whomever you find who can qualify for your research as a contributor of the data. The data is very important, remember. If you collect rich data, that helps us in getting good insights of the study. So choosing a respondent matters a lot. We have seen different sampling strategies, and different authors have given different perspectives. Purposeful sampling is one of the common terms that we find used in qualitative research. And under purposive sampling, you can choose single case or multiple cases, or the respondents with common characteristics or heterogeneous characteristics, or people with different experiences and perspectives, that we call extreme deviant case, or cases where they have rich experience. So these strategies give you an upper hand on controlling your insights of the data, because if you have good data, the robustness of your data result in good findings. We ended with a theoretical sampling, a sampling mechanism, a term that we use in grounded theories. So grounded theorists, they collect the data and analyze it simultaneously. The collection process and data analysis process parallelly. So at one point of time, there is a saturation comes. Saturation of data means here no new information is available. So theoretical sampling in a way stops the further data collection process. So this is also treated as a golden word in qualitative research, because that is the only term that we can validate that many number of samples are sufficient for our study. Hope you understood about the sampling process in qualitative data analysis. We will continue with the next phases in data collection in the coming modules. So thank you for your patience. Thank you.